Jada's mother was fading fast. $20,000 needed, nowhere to turn, everyone rejecting her. Some even asking for her body in return. Until the cold billionaire she barely knew stepped in and changed everything with one single night. A night she ran away from, leaving him obsessed, confused, and unable to forget her. Now danger, jealousy, betrayal, and a forbidden love are pulling them back together in ways neither of them expected. My sweet darlings, my honey hearts, welcome to SoulScript Stories. Please, if you enjoy stories like this, don't leave without subscribing, liking, and sharing. It means the world to me, truly. Jada's hands trembled as she stared at the hospital bill, the numbers blurring in front of her eyes. $20,000. Her mother, Mama Grace, weak and pale on the bed beside her, gave a fragile smile, trying to reassure her, but it did nothing to calm the panic rising in Jada's chest. We don't have that kind of money, Jada whispered, her voice breaking. Her mind raced frantically. She had to do something. Anything. She had already tried every possible option. Friends, family, lenders, each door slammed in her face. Some even had the nerve to suggest things so vile she had nearly recoiled. The thought of exchanging her dignity for money made her stomach turn. Yet desperation clawed at her, relentless and merciless. Every rejection left her smaller, more invisible, suffocating under the weight of her mother's illness and her own helplessness. Later, at the pharmacy, the humiliation continued. She clutched Mama Grace's prescription like a lifeline, shoving her fear aside as the line crawled forward. Sweat dampened her palms and her heart pounded as the cashier, clearly irritated, barked at her. Step aside. There are other customers waiting. She shrank back instinctively, cheeks flaming with shame as all eyes seemed to land on her. Murmurs and judgmental glances followed her every move. She wanted to disappear, to melt into the floor, but she couldn't. Her mother's health depended on her. Then, just when it seemed unbearable, he appeared. Ethan Adams. His presence was commanding even in a crowded space. Sharp eyes taking in everything, and yet when they landed on her, something shifted. Without a word to anyone, he stepped forward, slid a card across to the cashier, and the tension in the line dissolved. Jada's chest tightened. Not from shame this time, but from a rush of relief she didn't know she could feel. To him, it was a minor gesture. To her, it was a lifeline. Impulse drove her to run after him as he started walking away. "Excuse me," she called, voice shaking, desperation spilling over. I need to know how to repay you." He stopped, turned slowly, the corners of his mouth untouched by a smile. "Call me if you ever need help. Nothing else," he said, handing her a card. His tone was calm, measured, and commanding. Jada's heart thudded violently in her chest. She accepted the card with trembling hands, her mind reeling. Relief, gratitude, and an undeniable curiosity surged within her. Who was he? Why had he done this? By the time she returned home, her body still tingling from adrenaline, Mama Grace reached out and held her hand weakly. "You did it. Thank you, Jada." Tears stung her eyes as she sank beside her mother, pressing her forehead to hers. She felt relief, exhaustion, and a spark of hope she hadn't dared to feel in days. Then her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Did you make it back safely?" "Yeah." Her fingers froze over the screen. Her heart raced. He remembered me? She thought, disbelief and awe colliding inside her. She had been wanting to reach out to someone, anyone, to explain her desperation, but she hadn't known who would help. And now he had contacted her first. Jada stared at the message for what felt like an eternity, her mind spinning. Shock, disbelief, and something else. A fluttering excitement washed over her. She didn't yet know who Ethan truly was, only that he had appeared at her most desperate moment and changed everything. Somewhere in his penthouse, Ethan sat back in his chair, cool and composed on the outside, yet internally, he couldn't stop thinking about the girl who had run after him. She was different, not like the others who threw themselves at men like him, all smiles and pretense. She had grit, persistence, and a fire he hadn't expected to find. And for the first time in a long time, he felt compelled to watch, to know, to understand. Jada's hands shook as she stared at the card again. Her mother needed her, and somehow the line between desperation and something far more complicated had just been drawn. She had wanted someone to notice, to intervene, and now Ethan had, and he had reached out. Her heart pounded, her thoughts chaotic. Why me? Why now? But she didn't have time to dwell. Mama Grace needed her strength, and Jada's resolve hardened. Somehow, she would navigate this new, terrifying, and thrilling connection. Somehow, she would survive, and maybe even find hope in a place she least expected. And with that message blinking on her phone, the first spark between them ignited, leaving Jada both shocked and unprepared for the storm that was about to enter her life. Jada's fingers trembled as she stared at Ethan's number on her phone. Her mother's health loomed over her like a shadow she couldn't shake. The $20,000 bill wasn't just numbers on paper. It was life or death for Mama Grace. She had tried every option, and now, with the card Ethan had handed her, she had a chance, but it came with uncertainty. She dialed the number, heart pounding so fiercely she thought it might burst through her chest. When he answered, his calm, deep voice filled her ears, steady and commanding. "You called?" he said simply. No preamble, no greeting, just a sharp acknowledgement that made her pulse jump. I need help with my mother's treatment," she said quickly, swallowing hard. Her eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. "It's urgent. $20,000. I don't know what else to do." There was a pause on the other side. She could almost feel him calculating, weighing, observing. Then he said, low and deliberate, "I can help, but I want something in return. One night." Jada froze, shock and shame crashing over her like a tidal wave. She opened her mouth to refuse, to argue. But then she looked at the image of her mother's frail smile in her mind. The labored breathing, the fear that she could lose her. Her resolve wavered. She swallowed the lump in her throat and nodded. "One night. That's it. No strings, no future contact. Only one night," she whispered, her voice fragile but determined. She added with a firm edge, "And after this, don't call me, don't try to see me. This is just this." "Agreed," he replied simply, his tone unreadable but authoritative. The tension in the line was palpable, electric, as if the very air had tightened around them. The next night, Jada arrived, heart hammering like a drum in her ears. She had told her mother she was going out for a study group, a lie that made her stomach twist with guilt. But the desperation to save Mama Grace left her no choice. Ethan greeted her at the door, the dim lighting casting shadows across his sharp features, accentuating the cold, calculating man she had glimpsed before. But now there was something else, an intensity she couldn't ignore. She took a deep breath and set the boundaries again, words trembling but firm. "Remember what I said. Just tonight. Nothing else. No expectations. No future. Only this." Ethan's gaze darkened, a flicker of intrigue crossing his eyes. "I understand," he said, his voice low, magnetic, sending a shiver through her. The atmosphere was thick with tension, charged, as if every glance, every movement carried weight far beyond what either of them wanted to admit. The night that followed was a collision of nerves, vulnerability, and raw, unspoken desire. Every touch, every hesitant glance, every word whispered in the dark seemed to both ignite and terrify her. Jada was conscious of her boundaries, holding herself with pride even as the intensity of their connection threatened to unravel her composure. Ethan, for his part, was captivated, obsessed, even, with the way she navigated the night. Strong yet yielding, assertive yet vulnerable. When it was over, Jada left quietly before Ethan woke, heart pounding with a mixture of triumph, shame, and pride. She had survived the night, maintained her rules, and saved her mother. Her goals intact, but her emotions in turmoil. The city air outside hit her face as she ran through the quiet streets, adrenaline and guilt entwined, her mind spinning with what had just occurred. Hours later, Ethan woke, The bed was empty. His pulse jumped, his eyes scanning the room, settling on the sheets. And then he noticed it, the faint, unmistakable evidence that she had been a virgin. Blood on the sheets. Shock slammed into him hard and fast. He stared, frozen, trying to process the revelation. She had left, without a word, without explanation. He felt something rare, something he hadn't experienced in years, an obsession that clawed at him relentlessly. He wanted to understand, to know why she had gone, to pull her back and claim what she had given him, even if it was only one night. But there were other battles waiting. His Uncle Harrison scheming to seize control of Adams Industries, threats lurking in the shadows of his family empire. Only Eleanor, his grandmother, stood by him unwaveringly, the sole anchor in a sea of treachery. And now, intertwined with those battles, was this girl, this Jada, who had entered his life and refused to leave his thoughts, despite her absence. Jada, for her part, was struggling with her own turmoil. She had empowered herself by holding boundaries, but conflict roared in her chest. Relief at having saved her mother clashed violently with confusion, desire, and a gnawing curiosity about Ethan. Why is he so different from anyone else I've ever met? She wondered, recalling the way he had looked at her, calculated, intrigued, unyielding. Neither could stop thinking about the other. Distance had only intensified the pull between them. Ethan's mind replayed every detail, every subtle motion, every whisper of her voice, obsessing over the fact that she had left him without explanation. He couldn't understand it, couldn't control it, couldn't let it go. And Jada, walking home through the quiet streets, heart still racing from the night, knew she had crossed a line she couldn't take back, yet felt pride that she had held to her rules. She had saved her mother, maintained her dignity, and survived the intensity of the encounter with a man who was nothing like anyone she had ever met. Somewhere, miles apart yet inexplicably connected, they both thought of each other, hearts tied by the events of a single night. And somewhere in the recesses of his mind, Ethan made a silent vow. She was not leaving. Not ever. Jada stared at her phone one last time before she blocked Ethan's number. His call from the night before had been sharp, insistent, violating the boundary she had painstakingly set. She had agreed to one night, just one, because of her mother. Now that Mama Grace was healthy again, she couldn't let herself get drawn into this whirlwind of emotions, obsession, and power she didn't yet understand. She tapped the screen decisively. The number disappeared. Relief and anxiety clashed inside her chest as she shoved the phone into her bag. School demanded her focus now, her final year full of deadlines, exams, and an endless torrent of assignments that left little room for anything else. Her days blurred into hectic routines, classrooms, libraries, projects, and part-time jobs. She carried the lingering memory of Ethan like a shadow she couldn't shake, but she refused to let it dominate her life. She had responsibilities, a mother to care for, and a future to fight for. She reminded herself daily, she didn't need him, she wouldn't need him, yet fate had a way of unraveling even the best-laid plans. It happened on a crowded evening, the streets dimly lit and alive with the hum of traffic. Jada was walking home from campus when a commotion caught her attention. A woman was cornered by two men who had been circling her, clearly intending harm. Without thinking, Jada sprang into action. Adrenaline surged, sharpening her instincts. She grabbed a nearby metal rod and shouted, her voice fierce and commanding. "Hey, leave her alone." The attackers froze, then lunged at her. Jada's heart pounded, fear and courage colliding in a blur. She swung the rod, striking one of the men in the arm. Another attempt to grab her ended with a well-aimed kick, and she forced them back, keeping her balance despite the pounding of her pulse and the sharp pain of exertion. The woman, trembling, scrambled away to safety, glancing back at Jada with awe. When the men finally fled, Jada collapsed against a nearby wall, chest heaving. She had acted instinctively, purely, without thought for recognition. But in that moment, she felt alive, strong, capable, and utterly human. The woman she had saved turned out to be Eleanor Adams, Ethan's grandmother, though Jada had no idea of her identity. Eleanor watched quietly, her sharp eyes taking in the girl's courage, intelligence, and quick thinking. Later, recounting the story to Ethan in her study, Eleanor said, "There was a girl tonight. She saved me from a robbery without hesitation. Brave, clever, and determined. Someone you should know." Ethan's brows knitted in thought. "A girl like that?" he asked, intrigued. He described the scene he had heard from others, not realizing Eleanor was narrating the very same girl he had interacted with recently, the one who had run after him at the pharmacy. They were both talking about Jada, yet neither knew it. A strange synchronicity lingered in the air. Impressed and moved, Eleanor decided to act. She had seen Jada's potential, her intelligence, and her unwavering moral compass. That kind of talent paired with bravery was rare and worthy of nurturing. Quietly, without informing Ethan of the girl's identity, she sent an invitation to Jada. An internship at Adams Industries. An opportunity she never would have imagined. Jada was stunned when the envelope arrived, sleek and professional, the logo of the company unfamiliar to her. Opening it with trembling fingers, she read the words, "We would like to offer you an internship at Adams Industries. Your skills and courage have been recognized, and we believe you have great potential." Shock flooded through her. She didn't know who had noticed her, didn't know the woman who had sent this was the same one she had saved that evening. The connection, the gratitude, the sense of purpose, it all collided in a rush of emotion. She couldn't believe it. Her life had shifted in a single moment. From saving a stranger in a dark alley to being offered a prestigious internship she hadn't even known existed. I don't know what to say," she whispered to herself, clutching the letter. Excitement, disbelief, and gratitude tangled together. This was more than opportunity, it was validation. Someone had seen her worth, beyond her background, beyond her struggles. A hint of nervousness crept in. She didn't yet know what awaited her at the company. Didn't know she would soon encounter Ethan again. The very idea that the girl she had once been, desperate, humiliated, clinging to hope, was now being recognized for courage and talent sent shivers down her spine. She hesitated only for a moment before replying to the offer, her fingers flying over the keys. Acceptance, determination, gratitude. A new chapter of her life was about to begin, and she could feel the currents of fate tugging at her, guiding her toward challenges and encounters she hadn't anticipated. Meanwhile, Eleanor watched from her office, a faint smile playing at her lips. She had seen something extraordinary in that girl, and she had a feeling this internship would bring more than just professional development. It would stir the currents of her household in ways even she could not fully predict. Others would notice too. Jealousy would rise. Rivalry would emerge. But for now, she was content to nurture the girl's potential, to watch her navigate challenges, unaware of the storm she would bring, and the intrigue that would follow. Jada stepped into this new chapter, her heart a mix of pride, nervousness, and curiosity. She had rescued a woman she didn't know, saved her mother, and now had an opportunity that could change her life. And somewhere in the background, invisible threads tied her fate to Ethan's once again, setting the stage for encounters, chemistry, and escalating tension neither of them could yet anticipate. Jada tightened the strap of her bag as she stepped into the gleaming lobby of Adams Industries. The sunlight bounced off polished marble floors, the smell of fresh coffee and air conditioning mingling with the quiet hum of efficiency. She straightened her shoulders, telling herself, "You can do this. You belong here. You saved someone. You've been offered this opportunity. Now prove it." Her first stop was Eleanor's office, where the matriarch greeted her with a warm, knowing smile. "You're right on time," Eleanor said, her tone approving. "Follow me. I want you to meet someone." Jada's stomach lurched as they turned a corner, and there he was, Ethan, standing tall in a tailored suit, the same cold, controlled aura radiating from him as the night at the pharmacy. He looked up, eyes widening for a fraction of a second before masking it with neutrality. "Good morning," Eleanor introduced casually, as if nothing had happened. "This is Ethan. Ethan, meet Jada Stevens." Jada froze for half a heartbeat, heart thundering in her chest. She gave a polite nod, her mind racing. He knows. But he pretends he doesn't. Ethan's gaze lingered longer than expected. "How's your mother?" he asked, voice calm but infused with a subtle intensity that made her stomach flip. "My mother, she's fine. Better. Thank you for asking," Jada replied, voice steady, though her fingers twitched nervously. The way he asked, so personal, so intrusive, made her pulse spike. He seemed genuinely curious, yet guarded, calculating. She hated how much that intrigued her. They acted like strangers in front of Eleanor, exchanging only the most formal pleasantries. But beneath the surface, the tension crackled like electricity. Every glance, every subtle movement carried a weight neither fully understood. As the day progressed, Jada dove into her work with determination. She wanted to prove herself, to show that she belonged in this world of suits and high-stakes decisions. But the office was a battlefield. Helen and Rachel, senior colleagues notorious for their jealousy, watched her every move with veiled hostility. "Did you double-check those numbers?" Helen asked with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I'd hate for a mistake to embarrass you in front of the team." "I did," Jada replied firmly, meeting her gaze without flinching. "Everything balances perfectly." Rachel snorted quietly. "We'll see." Minutes later, subtle sabotage began. Misplaced files, delayed emails, whispered misinformation. Jada caught the signs almost immediately. Every time she tried to correct an issue, more obstacles appeared. The tension gnawed at her, and frustration rose, but she refused to panic. "I didn't get this far to be intimidated," she told herself. Ethan, from across the room, noticed. His eyes tracked her movements like a hawk, calculating, protective. He saw the subtle tricks, the malicious glances, the hidden obstacles. A small, almost imperceptible smirk crossed his lips as he stepped closer, offering a quiet word or passing along a corrected file, never directly confronting the culprits, but subtly making sure Jada's work stayed intact. He could barely contain the surge of emotion he felt every time he watched her. She was strong, resourceful, resilient, and yet, she had left him, vanished from his life, and now walked boldly in his territory without acknowledging their past. His mind raced. Why did she leave? Why didn't she stay? And the thought of the night they had shared, the one she had left before he woke, refused to leave him. The knowledge that she was a virgin, the evidence on the sheets, haunted him. His obsession simmered under the surface, driving him to protect her in ways no one would understand. The office hours dragged on, tension mounting. Helen and Rachel escalated their sabotage, attempting to discredit her to Eleanor. One particularly nasty maneuver nearly got Jada removed from a project. But Eleanor, ever observant, had CCTV footage of the girls' interference. When Jada appeared in Eleanor's office, Eleanor simply shook her head and said, "They underestimated you. Don't let them do it again." Relief surged through Jada, but it was tempered by the knowledge of how fragile her position could be. Her chest still raced, a mixture of fear, triumph, and something else she couldn't name. She caught Ethan's gaze across the room, and it felt like a challenge and an invitation at the same time. The rest of the day was a dance of subtle interactions, teasing glances, and fleeting touches. A hand brushing a document across the desk. A quiet, charged look over the rim of his coffee cup. Each moment tightened the tension, making the air feel dense with unspoken desire. During a brief break, Ethan approached her desk, leaning casually yet deliberately close. "You handled that impressively," he said softly, voice low enough that only she could hear. "Not many could manage it." "Thanks," she replied, cheeks warming, trying not to betray the rapid heartbeat she felt. She wanted to ask him about why he had helped her at the pharmacy, about why he had been so involved, but the question lingered unspoken, trapped by her pride and the rules she had set for herself. Ethan noticed the hesitation in her eyes, the unspoken curiosity, and it only fueled his obsession. "She wonders, but she won't ask. I want her to ask. I want her to know what I think, what I feel." By the end of the day, Jada had navigated sabotage, outshined jealous coworkers, and proven herself to be invaluable. But the emotional toll was heavy. The weight of constant vigilance, combined with the simmering tension between her and Ethan, left her drained yet exhilarated. She had survived the battlefield of office politics and had captured the attention of the man who had haunted her dreams and obsessions alike. As she left the building, papers clutched to her chest, she felt eyes on her. Ethan watched her from the office window, a storm of thought and feeling brewing in his gaze. Protective, obsessed, infatuated. He wanted answers. He wanted her. He wanted to understand why she had left him, why she had set rules, and yet why she stirred him so completely. Jada walked through the streets, adrenaline mingling with the afterglow of triumph. She was victorious, but the tension between them was unbroken. Their story was far from over. The office had been her battlefield. But now, a new war, one of desire, obsession, and emotional stakes, was just beginning. Jada returned home that evening with her backpack heavy but her heart light. Mama Grace was humming softly in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner, and Jada felt a rush of relief seeing her mother's health restored. She paused, leaning against the doorway, watching her move with a steady rhythm that used to feel impossible. "You seem lighter," Mama Grace said, noticing the smile on her daughter's face. "You're happy. That's good, Jada. You deserve it." Jada swallowed hard. She was happy, yes, but guilty. She hadn't told Mama Grace how the money had appeared to cover her treatment. She couldn't admit Ethan had been the one behind it, had requested a night she couldn't forget. She'd never let her mother know. Not ever. "I'm just grateful, Mom," she murmured, forcing the words into calmness. "Everything's okay now. Don't forget to be thankful," Mama Grace said softly, resting a hand on Jada's shoulder. "You've been through so much, baby. Sometimes blessings come when you least expect them." Jada nodded, smiling faintly, hiding the tumult of memory and emotion swirling inside her. She had been through desperate moments, humiliated, terrified, yet she had survived. The thought of Ethan lingered, involuntarily. Even now, she could feel the shadow of him hovering over her mind, a constant pull she couldn't ignore. Ethan, meanwhile, could not stop thinking about her either. From the moment she had walked into Adams Industries, his mind had been consumed by her. The curve of her smile, the fire in her eyes, the confidence she radiated despite the sabotage she endured. He had tried to focus on work, on managing the company, on his grandmother, but every sharp edge of his day bent back toward thoughts of her. The calm of the office was deceptive. Behind the scenes, danger simmered. Uncle Harrison had been plotting, his ambition barely contained. He and Cole, Ethan's trusted assistant, had conspired in secret. Their plan was ruthless. First, remove Eleanor from influence, discredit her completely, then maneuver Ethan into a corner, making him vulnerable, both professionally and personally. Every detail was calculated, every move intended to destabilize the family and the company. Harrison's cold eyes gleamed with malice whenever he spoke to Cole. "This girl Eleanor brought in, we can use this," Harrison said, tapping a folder filled with documents and schedules. "She might be a problem for me. Keep her close, but make sure she's compromised. We can strike when she's isolated." Cole nodded, masking eagerness behind polite smiles. "And Ethan? He's stubborn. But once Eleanor is gone, his focus shifts. We make him vulnerable. He won't see it coming." Unaware of the exact danger, Jada entered the office early the next morning, intent on organizing her tasks and staying one step ahead of the growing tension. She moved swiftly through the halls, her mind sharp and alert, when a quiet voice reached her ears. A conversation she wasn't meant to hear. "Once Eleanor's out of the way, Ethan will be exposed. He won't know what hit him," Cole whispered, his voice low, dangerous. Jada's stomach dropped. She pressed herself against the wall, heart hammering. Her mind raced, her instincts screamed. She had to act. She couldn't let harm come to Eleanor, or to Ethan, or even the company she had begun to feel connected to. "You can't risk her seeing this," Harrison replied, voice clipped and tense. "She's clever, too clever. Make sure she's distracted, somewhere else." Distracted? That was impossible. Jada's feet moved before her mind could catch up. She had to warn Ethan. Every instinct screamed urgency as she raced down the hall, adrenaline sharpening her senses. The office was quiet, the usual murmur of employees masked by her pounding heart. She reached Ethan's office, hand on the doorknob, breath shallow. She was about to burst in, to shout the warning she had overheard, when the door opened, and there he was, dark, commanding, all of him radiating danger and desire. Jada! His voice was soft, curious yet commanding. What is it? What are you doing here so early? Her words froze in her throat. Her instinct to speak, to warn him, battled the sudden rush of heat and panic at his presence. Her cheeks burned, and she felt exposed, vulnerable, yet undeniably alive. Before she could speak, he stepped closer, the air between them thick with tension. His eyes locked onto hers, intense, questioning, almost possessive. "Stop," he murmured, his voice low, cutting through her panic. "I don't want you to say it." Confused, heart racing, she opened her mouth. He closed the distance instantly, one hand pressing gently to her arm, the other resting near her waist. His lips captured hers in a sudden electric kiss. It was demanding, full of emotion, sharp with desire, yet tempered by something almost protective. Her body reacted instantly, heat spreading, breath catching in her chest. Yet a spark of rebellion, her pride, her boundaries, flickered within. The office seemed to vanish around them. All she could feel was him. The force of his presence, the tension in his body, the unspoken words buried behind the kiss. It was an escalation of everything unspoken between them, the intensity, the chemistry, the obsession. When he finally pulled back slightly, just enough to look into her eyes, the urgency in his gaze was undeniable. Danger still lurked in the shadows. Threats were close, silent, waiting to strike. Harrison and Cole's plots were unresolved, and the company itself hung in precarious balance. Jada's chest heaved, adrenaline and desire colliding, mind spinning with fear, excitement, and confusion. She had wanted to warn him, to take control, but instead, she was caught between danger and desire, between fear and an overwhelming attraction she could not deny. Ethan's hand lingered near hers, gripping just enough to ground her, his eyes dark and unreadable. "We'll deal with this," he whispered, a promise and a warning intertwined. "But you, stay close." Jada nodded, aware that nothing was safe, nothing was simple, and that this moment, this first kiss, this surge of tension, was only the beginning. The storm surrounding them had not yet broken, and danger, desire, and intrigue waited around every corner. The office lights glinted off the polished floors as they stepped apart slightly, hearts racing, awareness sharpened. Outside, the city moved unaware of the secrets, the plots, the obsession growing inside the building. For Jada, for Ethan, for Eleanor, the game had only begun. And somewhere in the shadows, Harrison and Cole smiled, unaware that the girl they underestimated was already one step ahead. Honey hearts, Jada and Ethan's world is only getting wilder. Subscribe, like, and share to see what happens when secrets, danger, and desire collide.